Welcome once again to the Power Lunch live show where we have up to 4 awesome speakers talking about all kinds of different things. And this week we do, in fact, have 4 speakers, unless someone logs off while I'm talking. But we have 4 at the moment. So a quick announcement I want to make before we get to our speakers is I want to tell you about the Entrepreneur Mentor Community, which is launching. You actually may be watching this in the Entrepreneur Resource Community Facebook group. The Entrepreneur Mentor Community is a low-cost paid program where you get access to dozens of fantastic mentors. I think we have 30 signed on now, experts in various fields, marketing, mindset, the kind of people I have on this show. You get support. You get a weekly Ask Me Anything solution session call with me. And basically all that stuff you need is you're building your business to fill in all those little gaps to make things work. So there's a link in the show notes on whatever platform you're watching on to get on there. We're also going to be doing an open house on Monday, November 14th at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So you'll get a taste of it. Bring your challenges. We'll solve some of them, meet some of the mentors, and you'll learn more about that soon as well. So that's my announcements. Now let's meet the guests you're actually here to see. Hello, guests. Welcome. So for those of you who are new to the show, we're going to start with quick introductions to our guests, and then each one has brought a topic that they'll be sharing and leading in some conversation about, and we're going to see where it goes, because this show is produced by my 2 producers, Serendipity and Random Happenstance. They've never let me down. Almost a year we've been doing these shows, and I've yet to be on one where I'm like, oh my God, when will the show be over? Every one I get to the end of the hour, I'm like, what, an hour went by already? Crazy. How'd that happen? So let us once again do this time dilation trick. And our first guest who will be introducing himself is let's see if I can do it. Pascal Dricot.
Yes, you pronounced it correctly. Thanks.
3 years
Thanks,
of
Michael,
high school
also.
French has served me well.
Yeah. Thanks for the invitation as well. So yes, I'm originally from Belgium. I lived abroad, and since 4 years I'm living in Vienna, Austria. So I'm happy that you have a lunch show and not a dinner show. Otherwise, that would be in the middle of the night for me. Anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm helping business owners, managers, and teams to transform their unwanted behavior patterns so that they can live highest potential. And my specialty is actually to help persons how to deal with toxic personalities. Why? Because I was an introverted IT nerd, and I learned how to deal with them. So it's about how to differently communicate with them, but also set boundaries, protect yourself, as well as recognizing them.
Fantastic. All right, next up is Carol A. Williams.
Yeah, hi there, and thanks for having me. I was doing a little bit of looking at my fellow people, and the man who just spoke, Pascal, he had this little thing that says he was a life and business coach. I was like, ooh, cool, because I think I'd put myself in that box too. But we're the same and we're different. Let's see. So while I'm that stuff, I've also been called, Michael, this is the kind of group where you can do this. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it.
Go for it.
I've also been called the green goddess of productivity. I've been called a little bit kooky, which is why people hire me. But really, at the end of the day, it's because I love to have fun. The people that I work with are entrepreneurs that love to have fun. They're oftentimes neurodiverse. They've got all these ideas and they love to get started. And as we know, if you've been hanging around Michael at all, what happens is about 80%, sometimes a little bit before 80%, things die out. And it gets boring and whoop, off to the next thing, right? So I help these folks really use those superpowers that they absolutely have to get to the end game and then some, because they're out to change the world and I'm out to help them change the world. And by the way, we're going to have lots of fun doing that. So that's what I do.
Fantastic. Yeah, we did have an episode once where the guests just started talking about what kind of fairy wings they had, like they were actually fairies and what kind of wings they had. And their bios were like financial advisor and speaking coach, and like I was not expecting the conversation. That was quite a show. So yeah, your head thing fits in just fine here. And next up is Dr. Jelina Shah.
Hi, Yes, I'm Dr. Jelina Shah. I'm a clinical pharmacist and a holistic diabetes health coach. So I help people with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes reverse their condition holistically. So I don't approach things with a ton of medications. I know I'm a pharmacist, so it sounds really strange, but I don't like medications. Go figure. And I try to not do, like, there's no fad diets, there's no calorie counting, no strenuous exercise. I try to address the body as a whole. So it's a different approach than typical Western medicine.
I'm reminded of the computer people who are like really into computers, and that's why they don't have one. Yeah, all the techie people are like, I'm not getting a smart home. I know too much. I feel like that's the same way. Like, I'm not giving people meds. I know what they do.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and last but not least, Daniel Burkholder.
Hey, everybody. It's nice to be here. Thank you, Michael, for having me here. So I am a solopreneur that's working at quitting my full-time job. And I help other solopreneurs build their futures as well. So that's a really short version. We can dive into that more later.
Fantastic. Have you heard about the entrepreneur mentor community? You might be interested in that. That's like exactly the kind of person I'm building it for is people in that position working to graduate out of their job into our world of entrepreneurship, which I highly recommend. Our world of entrepreneurship. I mean, I recommend the EMC also, but I highly recommend the world of entrepreneurship and getting out of jobs. So leading us off will be Pascal talking about dealing with narcissistic managers.
Yes. So one of the first things, right, is that what I learned is that the best thing is that you respect personalities, because there is a reason why you have a person is a toxic personality. And first of all, if you talk about toxic personalities, you have, of course, a very, very big range. So what happened is normally during a time of between 2 and 4 years, then there was some things that happened in your childhood which made you that when you get an adult that you have certain behavior patterns where, for instance, you have difficulties to accept negative compliments. You have difficulties when someone wants to show or ask you on your emotions, because you have learned that you have to deal with a mask on, right? So in this kind of cases, you build up some patterns as a personality where actually deep inside you are wounded and you have a low self-esteem, but you don't want to show that to the outside. And if someone attacks you in a kind of a way by just talking to you, you feel it as someone is attacking you. On the other hand, maybe they see it differently. So that's why suddenly they can change and suddenly become aggressive. So, or you feel that actually you stepped on their feet, right? So it's about, in the first place, and for me this is very important, that at the end you're dealing with a personality. And each person, for me, is a beautiful soul with some behavior patterns around it. And it's about, if the moment you look at this person with this beautiful, that this person is also a beautiful soul, you're going to deal differently with that person. That means that you're going to communicate differently. You're going to communicate more from the heart, which that means that your energy is a different one. That means that you're not going in the war zone anymore. You're not going in the offensive zone anymore, but you're going in the de-escalation zone. And it's going to help you actually to de-escalate the whole situation. But I don't know how much time do I have, but there's also a lot of things, of course, that we can discuss either in this show or later on, from how you actually can also recognize them from the beginning, right?
Yeah, I love that point you raised about how a lot of people are responding from a place of trauma, of damage, of they're not responding necessarily to you. They're responding to something that happened 14 years ago or 44 years ago, or something their mother did. Because if you don't clear out those patterns, then there's a lot of echoes going on in there.
Exactly.
So if anyone else has thoughts, feel free to chime in. I forgot to give you the briefing. Think of it like a lunch, not like a formal business meeting. So you got something to say, just say it. If you talk over someone, that's okay. You know, it's like cable news. I mean, don't keep talking over people, but feel free to just chime in and get going.
I wanted to say something about that, and I think you're right, Pascal. And coming myself, I used to be married to one of these folks. So what I'll say is the condition that you describe, thinking about them as a beautiful soul, what that necessitates in us is a lot of self-healing. If we've been around these folks for a while, it'd be one thing if you come complete, right? And there you are, you're working, and then this new person comes in, and you're suddenly in a work situation where, you know, you got a new manager, you moved teams, or whatever the case may be, and you're feeling like, ooh, I felt, wait, what's that? Because that's how it feels to me usually. Like when somebody's toxic in some way, it's, you don't recognize it necessarily. That's my thing. But at any rate, what I'm just simply saying, so that's one thing, but really what I'm saying is that it's true, and it requires you yourself to recognize it and then to be whole. So coming from somebody, from me personally, I had a lot of healing. Like you have to, in the beginning, you do have to be protective because you're already so like wounded, like and open, right? So I know this is like a pretty deep subject, but it's really close to my heart, and it's really, really, really important. So so thank you for doing that work in the world. And in peeking at your website, it seems like that's what you do. You help people get whole. So rock on.
I was just going to say, Pascal, I love how you phrased, we don't have control over how other people function and work. So when we enter, it's so interesting, right? Even with, I've done this before. Like I've had an interesting relationship with someone, but it wasn't until I showed up differently that the response and the reaction was different. And I love how you pointed that out, because I think it empowers us, because sometimes on the receiving end, we often feel sometimes disempowered or attacked. And this kind of gives you the power back when you get to show up differently. Like, oh, this person is probably coming from a different place. And when we show compassion and we show up that way, we come from a more empowered space. I really love that you brought that up.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Jelina. Yes, and on the same time, it's also having reducing your expectations, because you have to understand that there is a high possibility that you cannot change that other person. You can change the communication between each other, but that does not mean that a toxic person suddenly is gentle to you, is laughing together. That does not mean that a day later or 2 days later, it can swap again in the old. So it's about really also reducing your expectations and having a realistic expectations. Definitely what you said, Carol, if you have in a private, if you have it in a relationship, right? It's about understanding what can I expect from it, and what I don't can expect of it, what is actually a dream, which most probably I will not receive in that kind of a relationship, right?
Yeah, and I think there's also a situation a lot of people take personally when they're attacked, insulted, criticized, whatever. And I think to realize is that often this says more about them than it does about you. So my daughter's 8. I tell her that all the time when kids are making fun of her or whatever. And I say, if they're taking their time to make fun of you, what does that say about them? What kind of person does that? Yeah. And as I like to point out, sometimes when someone's really, really nasty, be like, yeah, you had to deal with them, but it could be worse. You could have to be them.
Yeah.
And I realize, because usually that kind of person is not, there's not a lot of happy people who are going around insulting people, trolling, attacking, manipulating. It usually does not come from a place of like, oh, I love causing harm. It's usually their pain spilling over onto the people around them.
Hurt people.
Yep.
And you have some narcissistic personalities who wants to change themselves, but this is really the minority, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of them, because in their world, they are always a victim and they're blaming someone else, it's difficult for them to reflect and to look for themselves, because it's also so painful for them, right? To go back and the place where they still have so much hurt, and where they were actually sometimes abused or whatever. What happened, right?
Yeah. So that's some really powerful concepts there. So we're off to a nice easygoing start, nice mellow, nothing really gets thinking too much, which brings us to Carol talking about staying calm and centered in holiday mayhem. Another not at all emotionally charged topic.
Yeah. I'll try to lighten it up a little bit, so I know not everybody here is from the United States, but here in the United States, we do Thanksgiving, which is, a non-denominational holiday, and everybody is invited to it, regardless of any sorts of beliefs. So I really love it for that reason. A lot of people I know love it for similar reasons. But I want to start out by just being a little bit comical and weird, because, again, it's why not? We're in Michael's program. Let's do it. So I was I was looking in Facebook, actually, and there's a couple that I like, and the man has ADHD, and he's just hysterical. His name is Penn. I don't remember his last name. Anyway, Holderness. Thank you. The Holderness family. Thank you. And so the woman was saying, I have an STD, and it was like some TD. It stood for skip Thanksgiving disassociate. I don't know. She wanted to skip Thanksgiving, whatever it was. And I just thought it was funny, and I thought I'd start out with that. But the truth of the matter, to get a little less light and a little more serious, is now is the time. Like, after we get past Halloween, we're thinking about whether you want to skip Thanksgiving and go right to December holidays, or whether you want to have Thanksgiving, whatever it is. There's always, every single year, no matter what you do, there's always a certain amount of stress involved in it, right? So it's really important to periodically, the work I do, and the work Pascal does, it never ends. You get to a point, and then you think you're good, and you are good, and then you want to get to your next point. So when you're thinking about Thanksgiving and or December holidays, I basically have 3 tips, and then I think we should just kind of talk about stuff. And this could actually apply to a lot of things, not just holidays. But number one is, they sound so easy, but it's just because things sound easy does not mean that they're easy. So number one is know what's most important to you. So that's a lot of what's going on with holiday stress. And, you're trying to do this, and what about Aunt Martha? Or what about, we always do that, but I hate stuffing, but I got to make it, whatever's going on behind the scenes, know what's most important to you. It's not so different than the narcissist. It's the narcissist isn't going to change. The holiday meal isn't going to change, but knowing what your kind of bottom line is, what's most important to you. Now that is important. So that's important. And then the next thing is to be flexible. Again, sort of similar to the narcissist, you got to kind of go with the flow, but truly be flexible. You wanted to have whatever it was, eating, or you wanted to watch the game, or you want to watch, whatever it is, be flexible, let it go. And then third is let it go. Those 3 things, let it go, those 3 little words, really easy to say, really not easy to do. We, especially around holidays, because they are steeped in tradition, right? So when we have these traditions, lots of times we're holding on to them, like something's gonna crumble if we don't do the thing, So those are kind of the 3 tips, and I open it up to any thoughts, conversations.
I love that. I'm reading a book by Martha Beck, and she talks about how we create our own suffering, right? Mm-hmm. When we have attachments. So when we're attached to an outcome, or we're attached to things having or shoulding, when we should on things, we should be this way. We should have the perfect turkey. We should have the perfect present from our spouse or for our children. We create a level of suffering for ourselves. So I love that I thought of kind of being flexible and letting it go, because sometimes you burn the stuffing and you need to just laugh about it and just adapt. Like, okay, well, maybe we're ordering pizza this year. Maybe we're getting Chinese food for Christmas dinner. Like, and you can start new traditions and new stories and memories to carry with you. So to look at it from that lens, I think is such a great concept.
Oh my gosh, I love that one. I gotta throw in a story. When I was having kids, this isn't a holiday, but it's the same thing about that same concept. When my first child, for the first birthday, I put all this stress on myself and all this pressure. So the second time I said, nope, that's it. We're going to do a potluck. We're going to make this so easy. We're going to have it outside. We're going to have a campfire. And I was like, we're going to just like have hot dogs. Everybody bring something. Well, you know what everybody brought? I'm not joking you. Hot dogs. We had every family. I'm not kidding you. And I just looked at my friend and she goes, should we just go get takeout? And I was like, no. And I was holding on to this idea that it had to be a potluck. I said it was going to be a potluck. The kids are 2 years old. Nobody cares. We're going to have hot dogs. But yeah, it's so, I speak the things that, as we all do lots of times, we speak the things that we need to learn. So a lot of this stuff is for me being a little less perfectionist and a little more, flexible.
I'm reminded of a running joke in my family with my daughters growing up. We had these blocks that we can, one says days, weeks, months, years. And then the other two are numbers, so that we could take the picture of the 1 week and the 1 month and 3 months and the whatever. And for one of them, we almost missed it. And I was like, no, we need to take these pictures. Joking, but we need to take these pictures because if she looks back through the roll and she realizes there's no 6 month picture, she'll know we don't love her. And then she's got to turn to drugs. And so if we miss these, drugs, no picture, drugs. So that was our catchphrase for anything that was important that we were about to miss. Like, oh no, we missed this milestone, drugs. We've led her down a path to the life of drugs. It doesn't matter. All these things just don't matter. My wife's actually going for surgery in mid-November, partly because she wanted to just put the recovery time through the holidays so she'd take less days off. But I wonder if part of it was it's simpler to recuperate on a couch during the holidays and be like, well, guess I can't go anywhere or do anything. I'm recuperating. I wonder if that was some of the so we're going to go to supermarket and get the pre-made dinner and like pick it up and bring it home, and that's going to be Thanksgiving. Not going anywhere. There's no way to do it wrong or right. She's recuperating. So and the way things have been going this year, I think she needs a little. I think she's really looking forward to it. She needs some recuperation time. But it's totally right to not worry about like it has to be this way or that way. But
I think Michael,
go ahead.
I think Michael, you said a good point, right? Which also relates to the first point what Carol said. It's like there is no right and there's no wrong. Mm-hmm. This is something what we learned from our parents, from our society, from the religion, from whatever we had and without us in an age between 0 and 7 years. We learned this is correct, this is incorrect, right? And this is what we then grow up, and as an adult we still believe that it is, right? For me, it was like a beautiful experience to also live in Asia and Indonesia, where suddenly things which were normal in Europe were suddenly abnormal in Asia and vice versa, right? And it's then where you really reflect and say there is nothing that is correct and this is incorrect. Mm-hmm. So if you think about that, you can create your own laws. And this is actually what this is how I interpreted what Carol is saying in the first place. What is important for yourself? So actually, you should create your own laws and stay behind your own laws. And then you're actually living a nicer life because those are only your own laws, right? And not the laws from your parents or whatever. Mm-hmm. Of course, if it's red, and maybe in some countries you should stop, right? Red light. But a lot of things we actually do because someone taught us that this is correct or this is wrong, right?
Mm-hmm. I think there's a value of tradition it brings you together with your ancestors and with the lineage and whatnot. But I think sometimes there's people put a lot of weight on faux traditions. It's one thing if your ancestors have been doing this for 1,800 years and it ties you to your people. But I think some of the traditions, the stuffing is not an 1,800-year-old tradition. Making sure we have a turkey doesn't go back. Most of the traditions we have in the United States go back to the 50s. And almost everything we think of as American life is post-war, is less than 70 years old, and some goes back to 80s or 90s, and we think it goes back into the dense mists of time. And if we talk to our parents, they're like, no, we started that like when you were 10. It's not an ancient family tradition, but you feel like if you lose that tradition, then what else have you lost? That's the beginning, and then we crumble, and then we're alone, and
it's drugs,
no family values, and it's chaos, cats and dogs living together.
I just also think it's like we do traditions, but it's like, what's the intention and the feeling you're trying to create?
Yeah.
If it's belongingness, if it's connection, and then you take the essence of that. So I think there are a lot of, going back to what Pascal says, we have so many cultural norms that these are rules that we abide by. But the truth is when we use our inner compass, when we stick to our own integrity of what feels good for us, that I think speaks more volumes to living like a happier life. And it's like, if the intention is to have to feel connection and belongingness, it doesn't matter that your wife is needing to recoup and you're buying something, you're still upholding the tradition because that's the intention behind it.
And we have seen during the pandemic how fast we can change.
Yes.
How fast our brain is able to things which were impossible, which were not natural, suddenly after a couple of months are totally natural. So actually our brain is very capable to change.
You mean like getting in a conversation with people in multiple continents on a weekly basis? Yeah.
Yes, like this.
Yeah, I wasn't doing that before the pandemic. So,
Yeah, I think adaptability is definitely, we need it in order to survive. Any species that can adapt has been able to survive. It's the species that can't adapt that don't survive, right? Like, and so being adaptable is key for survival.
Yeah. And so speaking of traditions that have launched in the last 40 years, talk about diabetes. Good segue.
Yeah. So, I'm a clinical pharmacist, and I actually was 65 pounds heavier. And I went to the doctor's office. My dad has diabetes. I have uncles with diabetes, and it's genetically predisposition. So when I was 65 pounds heavier, I went to the doctor's office, and she walks in and she's shaking her head and she looks at me and she's like, it's not a matter of if for you, but a matter of when. And I remember thinking, like, how did this happen? Like, I don't understand how I ended up in this situation, and doing everything I could at that point to try to figure out, because all she left me with was like, you just need to eat better and exercise more. But I was like, what the heck does that mean? So I consulted Dr. Google, as many of us do in times of need. And, Dr. Google had a lot of really confusing misinformation and contradictory things. And I think after doing my own research, like, I fell upon like doing a low calorie diet and low fat, and it did help me lose some of the weight, but it didn't help me lose all of the weight. And I say all this because then I started to kind of my own health journey into trying to uncover the truth about what's happening. I think in Western society, we really focus and fixate on just fixing, like, we have tunnel vision. And I think that works great when there's a virus or a bacterial infection or a sprained ankle. But when it comes to chronic diseases, we have to pay attention to the person as a whole. We have to also acknowledge that there are social, psychological, mental, spiritual factors, because those do have a physiological effect on our body. Like, our blood sugars do rise when we're stressed. And there's no amount of medication that someone can give you that can make that come down, no matter how great the meds are. So I say all this because I started to do my own journey, and I started to realize that there is something more out there, that we have to also work on the mindset. And that's how I lost like the rest of my weight. And I did so without feeling like unhealthy or hungry, because I was like on that low calorie diet. I was hungry all of the time. At least I was like, before I would say I was like fat, but at least I was full. Now I'm like overweight and I was always hungry, and I don't have that anymore when I learned how to eat differently. And so when it comes to these chronic diseases, I just really believe we have to have a bigger picture view. We can't just have such tunnel vision in the way that we're doing healthcare, at least in the Western side of things. So,
well, I love this topic because I'm also not diabetic, but mostly because I met someone 12 years ago who was a nutritionist named Craig Fear, who through a BNI group, and he did his 10-minute presentation as a visitor. He did a presentation on like sugar and the dangers of sugar, and I had no idea. And it's funny to think back on that. Like, that's like, there must have been a time when I didn't know that oxygen was key to life, but I don't remember that time. Like, to remember there was a time when I didn't know sugar was bad. And he explained this, and I'm like, oh. And then I talked to him more and learned more, and was able to basically from like the brink. I didn't get to the point where someone warned me, but I started to have some like reactions to sugar in certain ways. And now knowing what I know, I'm like, that was the rumble strip before you go off the road. And I was able to basically reduce my sugar intake early enough that it didn't take dramatic interventions to fix it. But so many people have no idea. I'll never forget when I was selling life insurance, and you go through and you ask all the medical questions. And you know, I got to learn a lot about metformin and its dosages and what that correlated to is if they could get insurance. And she's going through, and this image is emblazoned in my mind. She says, "Yeah, I'm on 2,500 milligrams of metformin, and it's genetic. There's nothing I can do about it." As she is telling me this, literally, her hand is conveying a glazed donut into her mouth as she's telling me that her diabetes is genetic and there's nothing that can be done about it. Because she just had no idea that the sugar, and you know, you look around the kitchen and it's all processed white flour, sugar foods. But there's no education. People just don't know.
Yeah. And it's not only sugar, it's carbohydrates. And that's the piece that people don't seem to know or understand. Or like, I didn't understand or know until recently. I was like, oh, I had no idea how big like carbohydrates turn into sugar. So it's not just like, they always think it's just someone with a sweet tooth. No, it's really not. Those people that are eating the chips, those people that are eating all the processed foods, the ones that are eating out all the time, you're at high risk of developing insulin resistance or prediabetes, diabetes, or any of those diseases associated with that. So it's wild.
Yeah. It's amazing how when we went to another country, right, to living there, then it took us like hours to read all the ingredients from everything, from the basics that normally we buy, right? To have a look from, okay, what's actually inside. And it's sometimes shocking what you are buying. Yeah.
Yes.
And they call it healthy and they call it this and that, but at the end you're eating a lot which is totally processed, and where is actually nothing healthy anymore inside, right?
Yeah, it's amazing what they can label as healthy these days. It's like you could just throw a label that this is healthy. And I tell my patients, I'm like, if it doesn't look like how it originally looked, like you're not going to buy a box of cereal did not come out of the ground looking like that. Like a strawberry comes out of the ground looking like a strawberry. And it's when we start looking and identifying food as real food, I think that's the key, because that's, you know, where things started, in my opinion, to kind of go wrong. Like every once in a while you want to indulge in something, I say go for it, but that shouldn't be the basis of your entire, you know, nutrition. Like.
So Dr. Jelina, what was your breakthrough then? I mean, you talked about mindfulness, you talked about changing what you were eating, but what was for you the big breakthrough?
You know, I had no idea how much my mindset was impacting what I was putting in my mouth. I mean, I think everyone knows that broccoli is better for you than a cupcake. But the question is why did I keep wanting the cupcakes? And it's not just because they tasted better. Like, I get that. But it was realizing the associations I was making. For me personally, had to do with like emotional eating. I was like, every time I was stressed, I wanted to reach for something sweet. I wanted something processed. And it created this pathway in my brain that said, okay, well, you're feeling bad. And I didn't realize that it's actually like, it's like a loan shark. Like, not only I'd go and eat this food and I'd feel better just for a few minutes, but what would happen is whatever I was feeling bad about in the first place, a few minutes later, I was still feeling bad about it. But now I have the exponential interest or the guilt of eating the food that I knew I wasn't supposed to. So it was breaking these cycles that I had unconsciously had created to keep myself safe, or overriding my hunger cues. I was a part of the Clean Plate Club for years. I hated wasting food. But the truth was, is it really wasting it? Because it's either garbage in the trash or garbage in my body. Like, I had to start looking at things a little differently and taking on a different mindset. And that really is what changed everything for me, was the mindset stuff. Like, you can know all the physical and the biological things, but it's the mental stuff that really keeps things for you, like long-term transformation.
Yeah. This is what we do, right? If we get triggered, we want to get out of this this circle, right? And then once we get out, we tend to give ourselves a present, so something that we like. And then it's about looking from what kind of present do we give, right? Because it can be that the present is unhealthy, right? It can be that after this that we say, oh, now I need a cigarette, right? Or now I need a glass of wine, or whatever, right? So, and this is, if you keep continuing this, then we are associating a trigger with this actually, with this present we're giving, and then we're coming in this circle, right? Yeah. So,
yes. So true.
Yeah. And I think my father used to be somewhat significantly overweight and is now, I think, underweight, but is certainly not overweight anymore. And a lot of it is just portion control. So he'll eat smaller things, and some of it, as you say, the idea of food that goes in the trash doesn't make you fatter. So, and actually, that's one thing that's been an issue for me having a small child, is that, I'll order something, she'll order something else, and then eat like 3 bites of it. I'm not quite sure how she does so well, because she doesn't seem to eat any food, but I think it's just the energy of food is what charges her. And then I'm like, oh, well, I wouldn't want that to go to waste. I'll just have a couple. But before I know it, I just ate a dinner and a half, didn't I? But it's okay, because food from other people's plates don't have calories, so that's fine. But just that like the non-mindful eating of getting that a little bit of her leftover stuff, or we'll split something, and then I'm like, oh, we'll get something big and split it, and she eats 3 bites, and I'm like, oh crap, wasn't paying attention to how much she ate. So
it's funny how she, though, is so in tune with her own body, right? She knows how much she needs to feel nourished and to keep moving. And it's like, we often override these signals that we have for ourselves. This is why we get so full at Thanksgiving. I am not like immune to that. Like, I'm at Thanksgiving and I'm like, yes, give me the pumpkin pie. And like, I will go ahead, and if there's pecan there, I will go ahead and have a slice of that too. I'm not saying that any of us are immune to that, but it's paying attention to these things and being like, oh, okay, do they really need that extra bite?
Yeah. Well, and that's something we've been very, very conscious of in raising her, is not to give her that, like, eat your food kind of neuroses. Now, if we give her something she doesn't want it, my wife has this terrible habit of then giving her something else. And I'm like, no, that's the food you have. Eat it or don't. Those are your choices. There's not eat it or don't, or we go back to the kitchen and cook something else. It's not a restaurant. But in terms of, if we get her something and she eats 3 bites, then she eats 3 bites. And I don't, I might make a comment on it, because sometimes she doesn't eat because she gets distracted and wanders off, and that's a different thing. But if she doesn't want to eat, she doesn't want to eat. That's, and sometimes she'll, eat all of it and start chewing on the plate, depending on what her body is. But I try to not override that for her, because I think that's what happens. Our parents, when we were young, like, you need to eat your food, eat your vegetables. There's children starving in China or whatever. The old joke, but there's children starving in China. Well, cool. I shouldn't eat this. Send it to them. They need it. I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, I have no idea how to segue this to LinkedIn. So, next up, LinkedIn. Daniel, tell us about LinkedIn for solopreneurs.
You betcha. Well, I feel like I'm probably one of the least experienced ones here. Just sitting and listening to you talk has been very fascinating. All the different subjects, and great to be here. So basically, I am a small town boy that has used LinkedIn. I'm using LinkedIn to grow a business, and I'm excited to have other people experience that same thing and be able to do that same thing and be able to take their future into their hands. I don't know if we want to get real tactical here today. I guess if people have questions, we can. But some of the things that I would encourage somebody that's just getting started, I probably have a couple of things I would encourage them not to do. And this is from personal experience that I speak, is don't compare yourself with other people. When I first started lurking on LinkedIn, when I started looking around on LinkedIn, I had this idea that everybody had it figured out. Everybody was making lots of money. Everybody was closing big deals. Everybody was just killing it on LinkedIn. I came to the realization somewhere along the way, I don't remember exactly when, but it came to me, it's like, you know what? These guys are no different than me. If they can do this, I can do this too. So just some encouragement. If you're just getting started on LinkedIn, don't be comparing yourself with other creators that maybe have been there 5 years, 3 years, even ones that have been there 6 months. Just stay in your lane. And then right along with that is envy, being envious of other people. Like, oh, why did this post get 1,000 likes and I wrote one that was so much better? So anyways, that is just some advice that I would give, because I struggle with that very same thing, is that comparison, envy. Another thing I would mention is perseverance, just sticking at it. A lot of people, they get excited about LinkedIn. They're like, oh, I'm going to write on LinkedIn. I'm going to be a creator. So they write and they write and they write and they make videos. And guess what? They just burn themselves right out, and they end up just within 6 months, they're done. So this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Just relax, start writing, start sticking at it, and just hang in there. So like I said, I'm a small town boy with very few connections. I'm from central British Columbia, so the wilderness of Canada, and I live outside a village of about 2,500 people. But LinkedIn has opened up a whole new world to me. I have talked to people that I have no business talking to because of LinkedIn. It's just really been amazing. So that's a little bit of my story. Just a few lessons that I would share if you are interested in using LinkedIn to grow your network, your business, and hopefully start your own little business someday.
I think what I liked most is your connecting with people you have no business talking to. That's been the biggest thing that came out of 20, because I'm in Southeast Connecticut, which is bigger than 2,500 people, but our whole county is 250,000. We're near New York, we're near Boston, but we're not in either. So it's quite backwater, and there's not a whole lot going on here. And then 2020 hit, and I went to the internet, and suddenly I was making all these amazing connections and meeting all these people, and so many great things were happening. And same thing. And I think what you're really doing that's working well is getting out there. That's the most important thing. Make content, get on shows, do something, and you may not hit it out of the park the first time, but that doesn't matter because everyone's got a different size park.
Absolutely.
I have a couple of questions for you. One is, what is the business that you're starting? And the other one is regarding LinkedIn. What's probably your most sort of biggest bang for your buck? And I was going to ask a more pointed question, but I think I'll just ask it that way. So what is the business that you're starting, and what is the biggest bang for your buck?
You betcha. So my company name is Your One Marketing Coach, And as you know, marketing is a huge subject, which when I started this little business, I did not fully appreciate that. So as I am finding my lane in marketing, I have been doing agency work for different people. I have been helping friends, and I have some clients I'm working with. What I'm really, really kind of niching into is helping people like myself use LinkedIn as a tool. And then, you know what, someday we may go broader than that. I have no idea where this is going to take me, exactly where I am headed on this journey. But yes, that's in essence, Year One Marketing Coach is my business, but I am really zeroing in on helping guys like myself use LinkedIn as a tool to network, to grow their business, to take whatever knowledge it is they have and they want to bring it to the marketplace. So that's short answer on that one. And I'm sorry, Carol, what was the second one?
Oh, yeah. So I was thinking about what I had success with, and I was going to ask a pointed question, but instead I wanted to ask you regarding what, like every possibility that there is in LinkedIn, which are a lot, like what do you believe gets you like the biggest bang for your buck?
Okay, I'm going to answer that as a two-pronged answer. I would say as somebody that's just getting started on LinkedIn, engaging with other creators and commenting on their posts is probably the most important thing you can do. Go out there and find 15 creators that maybe are in your niche. Maybe they're have a 10K to 100K following. Start commenting there. Leave some really valuable comments. And then also find some creators in your niche that are behind you. Maybe they've only started 2 months ago or 2 days ago. Start supporting them. But commenting is huge. And why I say that is every time you comment, your name shows up and the first 8 to 10 words of your tagline shows up every time you comment. So people are going to start seeing you showing up in their feed. And of course, we also get that reciprocity, which leads me to the second point, is start posting, start putting your content out there. I know you all have knowledge, tremendous amounts of knowledge. Start, if you prefer video, if you prefer writing, I prefer writing, honestly. Start writing, start sharing it. And then back to that, the reciprocity is if you're showing up on other people's posts, guess what they're going to want to do? They're going to want to support you. We all have that. And I still have friends that I made on LinkedIn when I started on LinkedIn back this spring, that we still support each other because we developed that relationship basically through reciprocity. I showed up as the new guy on the block and I started commenting on their posts. I started liking, engaging, and I was posting. They started showing up on my post, which was, I was always excited when somebody like Hampton showed up on my post. Yay, somebody liked my post. This is exciting. Somebody with like 8,000 followers, man, this is going to blow up. And so then after a while, you have people, maybe somebody like Darren McKee starts commenting on my posts and he has 50,000 followers. Oh, cool, this is so exciting. And then so I would say comment, two-pronged answer, bang for your buck. I don't know, make sense?
Yeah,
Yes.
it does. It does. Yeah, I like that too. I actually wanted to just share that probably around maybe 6 years ago or something, I decided to try to join some groups over there in LinkedIn and be active in them. And I wound up finding my VA, my virtual assistant, who was just getting started at the time and now has won a gazillion awards. So it was pretty cool. You just never know, like the kind of, as you said, the connections that you can make. It's kind of helpful. So
Yeah.
please connect with me because I can't seem to find you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, please connect. If I could be able to turn back the time, right, I would be much more active on LinkedIn, just what you said, like commenting. I used LinkedIn almost 20 years just to connect with people which were in the same company. Just if they leave the company, that I still have contact with them. That was my only purpose for me on LinkedIn. Till I became self-employed and then say, oh, I also can use it for my visibility. So I think it doesn't matter if you're self-employed, if you're an employee, it's always good to post things from the heart,
Mhm.
and like you said, to comment on other persons, right? Yeah.
But
You got
it's
it.
also a great way to passively network. But one of the challenges if you're an employee is if you're actively networking, then it looks like you're looking for a job. And if your boss gets wind of that, then they're like, "Oh, I heard you were talking to so and so. What's going on?" And whereas LinkedIn, be like, "No, I'm just connecting with people on LinkedIn. I'm just on LinkedIn, doing LinkedIn things, just doing social media things." But it means you have a network, because most people, they disassemble their whole job finding apparatus when they get a job, and then they lose their job, and then they're like starting from scratch and rebuilding their network. But LinkedIn can give you that passive. Of course, if you're a business owner, then you're always building your network anyway, because you need to find clients. But for an employee, it's a good cover. No, it's a good way to maintain that network and build that in a way that doesn't look like job seeking, but makes you great. And it's always good to have that in your back pocket when you're asking for a raise or promotion, or knowing like, with my network on LinkedIn, I could have a job tomorrow. So it gives you you negotiate differently, you carry yourself differently if you know you have options.
Yeah, you have a different visibility, right? That's it. Daniel, is there because sometimes I hear that the algorithms is changing quite a lot in LinkedIn from promoting, like the post, how LinkedIn is actually promoting posts?
There's always talk. As far as I know, there's very few people that know much about actually what's going on with the algorithm. So I would say the less I worry about the algorithm, the better I do. If my content resonates with my client, my ideal clients, with my audience, if my post resonates with them, that post is going to do well no matter what the algorithm is doing. So I would say my stance on the algorithm is just to try to work with it. Now, yes, I will admit the last month and a half to 2 months, it does seem like the LinkedIn has been playing with their algorithm, and there does seem to be some fact to that they've been changing it up a bit, and the algorithm is kind of relearning some things on its own. But my thought is to my clients is, you know what, those of us that hang in there, a lot of creators are going to drop off in this time, because it's just like their impressions have fallen flat. It doesn't feel like they're reaching anybody. It just feels like they're screaming into the void. They're going to just go away. So to my encouragement to my clients is hang in there, keep posting. Those of us that keep going are going to come out the other side, and we're going to be the winners, because like I said, 90% of the people are going to fall off. So my just for myself personally is I try to ignore the algorithm as much as I can, and I try not to blame it when my posts fall flat. Say, oh well, it's the algorithm's fault, I can't help it. No, it's my fault. My post did not resonate with my ideal client. That's why it fell flat. So that's kind of how I deal with it in my own head.
Or your ideal client does not know you yet.
That's right. I haven't found him yet.
Yep. Well, and the other thing I'll point out about sticking with it is the metrics on all these platforms don't give you the full picture of who's actually watching you and who's actually
100%.
engaging. So I discover this more and more, and it's super cool every time it happens, when I'll talk to someone and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've been watching your stuff for years." And now I've been producing podcasts of some kind for 3, 4, 5 years, stuff on social media. I've been on Facebook since 2006. So I've been having stuff out there for a long time. So there's people watching me for well, mostly 1 or 2 years, because most of my audience came out after 2020. But they watched me for 2 years. They know me. And because I'm very authentic in my content, so I talk about my wife, talk about my daughter, talk about my particular challenges, they'll mention something from, that happened last year that I forgot about. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember when you ran the, Conference 21. I'm like, "Oh, Conference 21. Yeah, I'm because they're there watching, but they've never liked, they've never commented, they've never shared, they've never emailed me, they've never said it. They're complete lurkers. So and that's something I've learned, is because sometimes I'll think, I don't know if I want to keep doing this show or that show or this kind of content or that. I don't know if this is worth doing. And then someone will pipe up and be like, "Oh yeah, my morning motivation show," which is a daily podcast. I think episode 700 came out today, tomorrow. So I've been doing it for a bit. And for a
Wow.
while, I was like, why am I doing this? What's is anyone listening? Nobody ever replied to anything. Nobody engaged, no matter what I put on, what calls to action, nothing ever happened. And then I would run into someone, and they'd be like, oh yeah, listen to your morning motivation every day. It gets me, gets me going every day. And they'd never said anything. I'm like, seriously? Every single day I say, email me, give me your feedback, and nothing. Like, it don't motivate you to respond. But the point is having that effect. Same thing with TikTok. I had someone email me through LinkedIn, weirdly, because you can't contact people through TikTok, and who said, like, I listened to your advice on TikTok and I got a job with it. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Well,
That's so cool.
yeah, it looked like I only had like 150 views, which is close to zero in TikTok terms. But apparently one of them got a job from it. So I'm going to keep doing it. It's
Nice.
probably worthwhile. But
That's
you never
cool.
know. You never know who you're touching when you put that kind of content out in the universe.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That is beautiful, right? If you get sometimes such a feedback,
Mm-hmm.
that someone who like you said, who listened to you years and then is coming to you and say, "From you changed my life," right?
Yeah.
Because of this podcast, or because of this one phrase or this one word, you actually open the door to someone else, and then someone changed your life, right? That's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
I wonder whose life we're going to change with this one.
A lot, I suppose.
Yeah, actually, something I want to share on there as we're coming to the end of our time, and then I'll give you all a final word. Is that sometimes it's easy to get caught in the trends of things. So I had a couple clients drop off at the same time. If you're ever in a car and like somebody jerks the wheel, then you're very aware of the guardrail, right? You're like, guardrail. So when you get a bump in your business, you're very aware of the dip. And so I got a little fixated on that for a minute, and then I remembered I make money so I can pay my bills, but I'm in business so I can help people. Like the reason I do what I do, there's ways I can do. There's things with arbitrage and whatnot that I know about that if I spent some time, I could probably make money that way. But I want to impact people. Like that's why I do it. And when I focus on that and don't worry about the money takes care of itself. When I focus on the money, I get all stressed out and I'm like, oh my God, I got to get another client. I got to get the paycheck in to make the bills. And you need to be able to really focus on why am I doing this and who am I doing it for? And so and it was actually really this morning when it finally sunk in, I'm like, oh yeah, the money follows. I'm here to serve. And then I got on a call with someone who needed exactly what I had to offer and was like, yeah, I'll take that, and I'll take that, and I'll take that. I'll take one from column A and one from column B and one from column C. And I didn't even realize it was going to be that kind of call, but I refocused on why am I here and what is the mission. So when you focus on taking care of others, the universe takes care of you. When you focus on taking care of you, nobody's taking care of you. So that's my final thought. So, Daniel, final thoughts.
You know what? I just want to say that again. That making an impact and helping others, that is exactly my purpose and my mission and my why for my business. And I want to keep that because, yes, I need to pay the bills. I have 3 small children. I have a wife. So I have bills. But like you said, is if we focus on our mission of making an impact and serving other people, and when we get on sales calls, when it's I am there to serve, how can I best make an impact on you? That is the kind of people I want to work with. And so, yeah, absolutely love that. I'm here to make an impact, and I want to keep it that way. I don't want to get distracted with money. So yeah, I appreciate bringing that to mind, Michael, bringing that up. And it's been great being here. So thank you for putting this together.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Dr. Shah.
Yeah, my biggest thing is that it's never too late to change. I quit my job, a corporate job, a year ago to do this full time. And whether it's your health or your relationships or whatever is going on in your life, it's never too late to change and make a difference and do something differently. So, I just, it's not too late. You just need to take some steps in a different direction. And that's why people like us are here, is to help.
Great message. Coach Carol.
Okay, I just need to say how much fun this was, because I'm all about fun, meeting people from all around the world doing these wild and crazy things. So, Michael, this has just been a complete pleasure. And I'm glad I have a final word, because I have 4 things borrowed with permission from Michael Bungie Stainer, who's a coach in Canada. And I wanted to add it to that part about sustaining. And I also think it's important to think about, as we serve people and as we change, that there's these 2 kinds of change. There's easy change and there's hard change. And there's 4 things that will happen when you're doing that hard change. Is the kind of change I work with, right? It will get messy. You can all appreciate that. I'm looking at my notes. You're going to get angry. Like, you can get really angry. Like, we're kind of sunshining it here. You can get angry. Things can go bad. You'll want to quit. And it takes sustained effort. So that's the part that made me think about those 4 things. So thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy and a pleasure.
All right, thank you. And Pascal.
Yeah, I loved it as well. 8 o'clock in the evening here, so lovely time for have that dinner, not lunch. So I continue actually what I heard, and the thing is that what I've seen in life is whatever you are, whatever you have, you can change it, and there is a possibility to change it, and that's the beauty of it. So this is actually my message. Believe that whatever you have from dreams, whatever you want to be, you can become, right? And this is how you have help from people you know, from professionals, whatever what. But there is a possibility, and a fast possibility, to change actually in a direction wherever you can do. If I look myself, my MBTI and my BRICS type indicator, is just changed 3 or 4 of them, right? By just working on myself and just changing how I was from being in a work career into doing now a heartfulness, mindfulness help, right? So it doesn't matter what you do, you can change your behavior, you can change whatever you want, and just believe in yourself.
Fantastic. Those are some great messages. I always love doing this show. This is one of my favorite parts of the week, and why I keep doing it. Some people ask me, your show's so on focus and it's hard to brand, it's hard to sell anything from it. I'm like, yeah, but I get to meet these amazing people every week and learn from them, and I don't even have to pay for it. Like, it's free for me to run this show. What a deal. Amazing. So if you're out in the audience or on this screen and you're like, I could see myself being a guest on that show, the link is down there, scrolling right by. Am I going the right way? Yeah, there we go. Scrolling by. guyknowsaguy.com/powerlunch. So you who have been on this week, love to have you on again at some point in the future. And if you haven't been on, you should come on, meet us, join the fun. We have some really interesting conversations. And this was out on my LinkedIn feed. So I believe all of you, the guests, you have links. So if you haven't shared it yet, you can say, I was on a show. It was amazing. You should see all the smart things I said. And now, boom, LinkedIn content. There you go. That's how you do it. Done for you. So thank you all for being on the show. Thank you all for watching. And we'll see you here next Tuesday. What day is it? Friday. Today. Next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and 7 o'clock if you're in Austria.